guys, this is the first of today's videos and we're on Argentina. Yeah, here we go. As before Europe came to Argentina, Argentina was believed to be thinly populated, as in the northwest there was settlements and all that grew, like had farms and all that, like potatoes and squash. Sometimes I lived in walled towns where there was use of metal and pottery, but most were kind of like hunter-gatherers kind of thing. As they it's believed it continued it up until the late 19th century. As Europeans arrived in the 16th century, as in 1516, Juan de Solis reached the River Plate and was killed by those already living there, not surprisingly, and he was followed by Sebastian Cabot, who reached the River Plate about 10 years later in 1526, and then Pedro de Mendoza in 1536 led an expedition and he built a fort, but the Spanish forces were forced to withdraw because of the locals weren't too happy that they were there, kind of thing. And he wouldn't be when someone else is invading your land. But towards the late 16th century, several towns were founded in the northwest, or what is now Argentina. And Buenos Aires was founded in 1580 to give access to the sea, and yet in the southern part of Argentina was left to those who would have usually been there. And in 1776, a new viceroy of the River Plate was found, and Buenos Aires was its capital. And in 1806, the British captured Buenos Aires for a time, but were forced to withdraw, as they did attack again from the sea, but in 1807, but wasn't quite as successful. And the links between Argentina and Spain were weakened within the 19th century as well, especially after 1808, after Napoleon forced the Spanish king to abdicate and made his own brother the king of Spain. And on the 25th of May 1810, the viceroy was the president junta took over Argentina, but they did not break all ties with Spain until 1816, as the United Provinces of the River Plate was declared on the 9th of July 1816. And at first, the United Provinces consisted of what is now Argentina, Bolivia and Uruguay. More on Uruguay very soon, but the new state was basically divided between unitarists who wanted a strong central government and a federalist who wanted a loose federation of provinces. But in the 1820s, the state broke up and Bolivia became independent in 1825, and Uruguay was created as a buffer state between Argentina and Brazil. After a war between the two in 1828, after a war between the two countries, and in 1835, General Juan Manuel de Rosas essentially became a dictator of Argentina, as he was a federalist. But he introduced a strong and considered repressive central government, but Rosas eventually alienated much of the people in the provinces, and in 1852 a rebellion removed him from power. And in the late 19th century, those who were living in southern Argentina still lived by the traditional means. However, in 1879, General Julio Rica led an army to conquer them, as the conquest of the desert was over by 1880, whereas the first railroad in Argentina was built in 1857, as it was followed by many others, and in 1900 there were over 10,000 miles of railroads in Argentina, and by 1912 over 20,000 miles, Sorry about that a little bit, but as the railways made it much easier to transport produce to the coast for export, as they exported a lot of meat, wool and grain, and by 1900 she was the richest country in South America. As the population of Argentina boomed partly due to immigrants from Spain and Italy, and by the end of the century the population of Argentina was about 4 million. And during the 1920s, Argentina was the 7th richest country in the world, but was affected by the Wall Street crash of 1929. And in 1930 the army staged a coup and General Jose Uriburu became president of Argentina, as Uriburu was called an election in 1931, and although a major party, the Radical Party, was banned from taking part, another election was held in 1937. Despite many accusations of electoral fraud, Roberto Ortiz became president with Ramon Castillo as vice president, but ill health forced Ortiz turned over power to Castillo in 1940. But 3 years later, in 1943, the army staged yet another coup, and in January 1944 Argentina severed diplomatic relations with Germany and Japan, and on the 27th of March 1945 Argentina decided to declare war on Germany. But after the 1943 coup, Juan Perón gradually emerged as a leader, and in 1946 he was declared elected president, as Perón introduced a number of welfare measures and nationalised industries, as he was re-elected in 1951 but gradually lost support. In 1955 a revolution called the Revolution of Liberation forced Perón to flee abroad, as several short-lived governments followed, and in 1958 Arturo Frondizi was elected as president of Argentina, but the military removed him 4 years later in 1962. And more elections were held in 1963, and Dr. Arturo Illia became president, but the military removed him in 1966. So yeah. However, the military dictatorship didn't bring peace, and in May of 1969 rioting broke out in Cordoba as unrest spread throughout Argentina as inflation grew. And in 1973 the army allowed more elections, and the Peronists, who were supporters of Juan Perón, won, and a Peronist called Hector Campora became president, and it was then that Perón returned from exile, as Campora resigned to make way for him, as more elections were held in September 1973, as Perón became president. However, he died a year later in 1974, as his wife Isabel Perón took power, and under her rule inflation and unrest continued. Finally, in March 1976 the army seized power yet again, as they suffered a brutal military dictatorship during which thousands of people disappeared during the Dirty War. Meanwhile, inflation continued to rage, and Argentina became heavily indebted. In the early 80s, despite repression, protests against spread across Argentina. To try and divert people's mind from the problems, the junta invaded the Falklands on the 2nd of April 1982. However, the war turned out to be somewhat of a disaster, as we recaptured the island from Argentina, as the economy was in dire straits. As eventually the junta allowed elections in October in 1983, as Raúl Alfonsín took power on the 13th of December 1983. And although Alfonsine wasn't able to solve the problem of hyperinflation in Argentina despite austerity plans introduced in 1985 and 1987, in 1989 Alfonsine handed over power peacefully to the next elected president, Carlos Saúl Menem, and during the 1990s, Menem managed to curb inflation and he privatised industry. And I will mention at this point that Jorge Rafael Videla, I think it is, did kind of lead a dirty war and all that. And in 2000, from 2001 to 2002, Argentina suffered a severe recession, but the economy grew strong for many years afterwards, as the economy is still growing steadily. As in October 2007, Cristina Kirchner became the first elected female president of Argentina, and then in 2015 Mauricio Macri was elected president, as the population is believed to be about 44 million. And yeah, the Carau or Amas Gaurana is a bird from the wetlands of Argentina and other countries in the Americas. It's also known as the crying bird, Limkin Carau or Colan, and looks like a cross between a crane and a rail. And from the northeastern parts of Argentina comes a legend about its origin. Also warns about the dangers of disrespecting one's own mother. Don't do that. As the story tells of a mother suffering from a terrible illness sent for her son to fetch medicine for her from a nearby village that she desperately needed, and her son, who was a young man, was not too bright and was said to be selfish, set off walking to the next village to get the medicine. And on the way he heard a distant sound on an accordion playing. He was intrigued by the music, he followed the sound and came to a place where a country dance was in full swing. Like many other young men, he liked to dance, and nothing better than dancing with a pretty girl. And searching out the prettiest girl, he asked her to be his partner and would soon be taken up by dancing with her. As he was enjoying himself so much, he forgot his mother, who was waiting for him to return with the medicine. As he danced and caroused all through the afternoon, and the evening began to fall, and one of his friends tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Please accept my condolences on the death of your poor mother. I am very sorry for you." But he said, "It matters not that my mother has died. I will have time to grieve later. Right now I'm enjoying myself." As he carried on dancing throughout the night, and as dawn was breaking, he asked the girl if he could go home with her, as she took him with disbelief and anger and said, "My home is far away, and if I were near, I would never allow one such as you, who has no love for his mother, to pass through the door." And this shocked the young man and broke his heart, and he suddenly realised what he had done, and he went home crying bitter tears, as God looked down and, as punishment for his callousness towards his sick mother, turned him into a large bird wearing black feathers of mourning. Ever since, his lamenting cry will be heard at dusk and throughout the night and at dawn, as a warning to all young men to respect their mothers until God sees fit to pardon him. So yeah, that is Argentina for you, and yeah, bye for now. Don't disrespect your mother, even if, no matter what, okay? Yeah.